unmute myself there. Hey folks, welcome into the News 12 Now desk. Thanks for joining us here on this Wednesday, May the 31st. We made it to the end of the month here. End of May, June starts tomorrow. It's about 8 o'clock here in Augusta. We're taking a look real quick at the forecast that we've got from, oops, oh man, I'm pressing all the wrong buttons out here. Hang on a second. There we go. We're taking a look here at the forecast. Got some good weather out there this morning. Taking a quick peek outside. Looks pretty blue. Not a lot of clouds out there. Just an overall good start to the morning. Nice and warm too. I know it's been a little cooler the last couple mornings, but today it is pretty warm. We're taking a look at our top headlines here. Some of the big stories going on across the CSRA. Before we do that though, wanted to real quick remind you guys how to subscribe to the YouTube channel here. If you're on YouTube and you go to WRDW News 12, that'll take you right to our page here. You can subscribe over here on the right, and then take a look right here. You've got your top headlines. Once this ad finishes up, you'll see, there we are. There's me showing you how to do this. You could chat over here, subscribe. Just a good way to stay up to date with what's going on. We do a lot of streaming over there every day. Top headlines, breaking news, press conferences. We talk to our IT reporters more in depth about their big stories. We're actually doing that today. I'll talk more about that a little bit later on. But yeah, good way to just stay informed with what's going on in the community. Also download the streaming app. That's another good way to do it too. But all right, let's get into our top headlines here. A shooting in Aiken took the life of a 19-year-old from Graniteville. It happened Monday night on Red Street. It's near Tennessee Avenue. Aiken Department of Public Safety says Amari Williams died in his car after being shot in the head. His fiance was in the passenger seat when they say a car came up and shot into the window. He died at the hospital. Our Alyssa Lyons spoke with Amari's mother, who says she only began grieving Amari's brother, who just died 4 months ago.
That's exactly right. It was just a routine trip to the park. Amari Williams, his fiance, his 17-year-old friend Malaysia, all waiting for Williams' nephew to make the trip down the street to play. It ended with the family now crying for help. It's too quiet for a place that feeds off laughter, life, because the life of 19-year-old Amari Williams was taken there.
We were sitting there, just playing music, just chilling in the car.
1 minute.
They point at the girl in the back seat, just like this.
1 moment.
They drove to the stop sign. They stopped. They backed up.
She'll never forget.
And I laid in his lap until he died.
I hit the floor. Just not again.
It's the second son Courtney Davis has lost in 4 months. Amari's brother Quan died in January of an accidental overdose. This, Amari's fiance says, was no accident.
It was meant for her because we stayed home. We stayed in Beach Island. We never came. The only time we came to Aiken was to drop off my son, and when we would drop him off, we would hang out with her.
Now they're left begging why.
Turn yourself in. I ain't have to lose my baby.
Because 1 moment can leave only this behind.
They not even making it to 35 now. My baby was 19.
I reached out to the Aiken Department of Public Safety. They say while this is an ongoing investigation, they do not feel as though there are any safety threats stemming from this, but they confirmed it does not appear to be a random act.
Okay, thanks for that, Alyssa. You can just hear the pain in that mother's voice, just hard to listen to. A man's recovering at a hospital after a shooting in Augusta yesterday afternoon. It happened just before 3 on Cooney Circle. That's near Jennings Place. When deputies got to the scene, they found a man had been shot at least once and was taken to the hospital for treatment. No word yet on his condition or a suspect. Well, this is more than a little leak here. The people of this North Augusta apartment complex are frustrated after a water main break flooded some units and left others with little or no running water. This is Brighton Place off Bergen Road. Rhonda Davis Wright took this photo and video here as water gushed out of a closet at her building. She tells us it was like an explosion, saying the pipe apparently broke in the closet on the ground floor of her building. The complex is without water. We reached out to management, who says plumbers are working on a fix. It's been a week since the city first addressed its cyber attack here in Augusta. Several city departments are still dealing with the lingering effects of that. A cyber crime group has claimed responsibility, but Mayor Garnett Johnson says the city has gotten no ransom demand. Now the question is, when are these systems going to be back online? Our Craig Allison went to go find out those answers.
There's confidence in progress, but still no new update for a plan other than the IT department is working on it. Most Tuesdays, city commissioners are meeting here with other city leaders to make and debate new laws, projects, and programs with commission and committee meetings. However, with that, the mayor says that there is going to be a new update coming later on in the week.
As this investigation continues, this is a very serious matter.
Mayor Johnson says the IT department is making progress, but there's no clear picture on an end to this issue. Still working with local law enforcement partners and the FBI.
I have the full confidence that we're making progress. 90+% of our city departments are able to function. We're able to conduct business.
While it's 90+% of departments working, it comes at varying degrees. For the tax commissioner's office and paying utility bills, the workaround is a combination of online and in-person payment. For public safety like Augusta Fire, EMS, and the 911 Center, it's communicating life-saving info via radio and phone without full access to personal medical records. Augusta Transit tells us they communicate bus routes and delays over radio and phone, rather than electronically in real time. The probate court that deals with firearms and marriage licenses has been closing around noon for the past week, and Animal Services is completely pushed back to entirely on paper, with no updates available for their 24/7 lost and found pets database.
I want to give the people the confidence in knowing that we are working as diligently and as expediently as we can to get to the bottom of this so we can come back to 100% full functionality.
And again, another update coming this Friday. The committee and commission meetings are going to be stacked together next Tuesday. But still, there is no confidence on when this issue can be resolved, even into next week. In Augusta, Craig Allison, on your side.
Okay, Craig, and again, that announcement coming from Mayor Johnson on Friday, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and let you know what comes out of it. Family and friends are remembering the life of Dorian Scales. She was a local singer and founder of Brown Beauty Magic. Her company strived to show diversity and representation by using some of your favorite children's characters. Hundreds knew her best as being a kind and bright pillar in the community. Our Will Rio spoke with her family to learn more about her legacy.
And when I'm sad, no one understands me like you.
This is a family favorite in Dorian Scales' household.
Every promise you make is true.
Nobody is the title of the song.
She was driven, she was creative, she was spiritual, she was all the things you could imagine.
Including a leader to our community.
She was passionate about children, particularly children of color, particularly little girls, because it resonated so closely with her.
That passion led Scales to create Brown Beauty Magic last summer. Since she was young, her dream was to show children of color these characters can look like them.
That is her manifestation on this earth, and we want to see it continue. And every little girl that organization reaches, and they look up and they see a Princess Tiana and Ariel, you name it, they gleam with hope and joy just having that character there with them. They take that with them, and that's a piece of Dorian everywhere they go.
Her family says she was able to bring love, light, and hope to people, even when she didn't feel the love, light, and hope herself.
Life is still hard. You can look someone in the eyes and think the world of them and never know what's going on.
Dorian's family say check on the people you love. Reach out to the person who may need it most.
That random text, that random call from that person you haven't spoken to in years could literally change someone's life.
Her dress, her crown will live on and continue to change lives in the CSRA.
It's beautiful just to see the amount of work she's gotten done in that short amount of time, and knowing that this is still just the beginning and it's going to go on and bless Augusta for generations to come, hopefully.
In Augusta, Will Rio on your side.
No one understands me like you.
Celebration of Life is going to be held at noon tomorrow at Friendship Ministries in Appling. Instead of flowers, Dorian's family requests donations to Broken Outreach Ministries in support of those facing mental health challenges. A 4-year-old fighting for her life after a shooting at an apartment complex in Grovetown. Nick Veland has more on what we're learning.
An apartment complex on Sterlington Drive, now quiet. But the Grovetown Police Department is still making follow-ups on a 4-year-old being shot in the head Monday afternoon. From what police tell us, the little girl's father, Davion Daniels, placed the gun on the floor, left the apartment for a phone call. He returned to find his daughter with a gunshot wound to the head. Police say that they discovered and charged Daniels with possession of a sawed-off shotgun. Grovetown's chief of police told us that there were possibly 2 adults and 3 children in the apartment. Daniels and 1 other adult raced the child to the hospital, where the Columbia County Sheriff's Office pulled them over for how they were driving. The 4-year-old was rushed to the hospital, where she is in extremely critical condition following surgery. The Grovetown Police Department called all of this, quote, totally avoidable.
The Grovetown Police Department also says this is a good time to remind you to be responsible with guns, especially when kids are around. We're continuing to follow up on this investigation, and we'll keep you updated with what comes out of it. But right now, just our thoughts are with that little girl as she continues her recovery today. A small church in Burke County is picking up the pieces after a group of young vandals hit their place of worship. Blunt Hill Baptist Church's building is about 100 years old and has a congregation of 20 close-knit members. Now, the building is in shambles, from holes in the walls and the ceiling. Our Hallie Turner sat down with the pastor of Blunt Hill Baptist Church to take a closer look at what remains.
Been there 30 years.
Have you ever had anything like
I
that?
never had no trouble in my life.
Now, the remains from trouble are all over the floor of this 100-year-old church.
See, when I got in here, I looked in the church, I said, Lord have mercy. I said, devil Waterloo, and devil is Waterloo. The devil like a roaring lion.
As glass and debris crunch underfoot.
They broke the ceiling fans out, got a hole in the roof, broke my commode down, tore up my PA system, messed up the pulpit.
He's talking about the 3 teens accused of breaking into Blunt Hill Baptist Friday.
The secretary called me on Friday night about 10 o'clock and said they done tore the church up.
All 3 suspects are charged with burglary in the 2nd degree and criminal damage in the 2nd degree.
What you want to tear up something that ain't bothering you?
While he's left to pick up the pieces, he says it won't keep them from Sunday service.
I ain't gonna let nothing separate me from the love of God. I'm gonna hold on to God and change the hand. Because ain't nobody way said we're gonna be easy. You're gonna have some ups, you're gonna have some downs, you're gonna have some trials, and God, you're gonna have some tribulation. But you gotta hold on to God and change hand.
In Waynesboro, Hallie Turner on your side.
Let's keep it in Burke County here. Remember those little puppies we told you about that were left on the side of the road? Somebody dumped 10 little dogs out there on Bellevue Plantation in Burke County, and now they're up for adoption starting tomorrow. Emma Ellis got a chance to spend some time with the pups looking for a new home.
These puppies are full of energy, and each one has its own unique personality.
You got your ones that want to sit back and kind of be cool, calm, and collected, and you got the ones that want to lay in your lap and sleep, and then you also got the couple that are bouncing all over you, want to be all up in you and everything else.
Seeing them all here playing, it's hard to imagine anyone dumping them on the side of the road.
It was found out that a person driving a silver sedan came down and dropped the puppies off. Nobody managed to get a tag number or see exactly where they came from or which direction that they were heading back out once they finished dumping off the puppies.
Now these puppies will be available starting on June 1st, and they open at 1 o'clock. All puppies adopted from Burke County Animal Shelter will have received their first round of vaccinations by the time you take them home.
We definitely encourage people to come down and adopt if they're ready for another pet. But we only ask for them to adopt if they're actually ready for it. That's a full-time commitment.
If you feel the tug at your heartstrings, they'll be ready.
Burke County Animal Services opens at 1 tomorrow. Just a reminder, adoptions for these adorable pups are going to be first come, first served. There's 10 of them out there, so get down there quick and make sure you get one if you want it. Again, only if you can. And we've got so many dogs around the area at our shelters that need to be adopted, especially with summer coming up. You know, it's kitten season, so they're trying to clear out those shelters quickly. The 95th annual Scripps National Spelling Bee is underway in National Harbor, Maryland, and one of the contestants is from right here in Augusta. Cy Lacomcity, sorry if I say that wrong, Lacomcity, is from Stallings Island Middle School and made it to nationals after winning the state spelling bee back in March. He says he studies religiously for this competition, but sometimes the hardest words to spell are the simplest.
Like the words that give me the most trouble are honestly the simpler words that you think of, because most complicated words I know have like patterns behind them and I can answer them confidently. So ironically, it's the shorter words that are sometimes the hardest.
He made it to nationals once before. That was in 3rd grade, so we are wishing him the best of luck in that competition. Bring us down some hardware from Maryland. Okay, later today, Piedmont Augusta is holding a ribbon cutting and grand opening celebration for its new facility in Harlem. It's the first of its kind in the Piedmont system, and the goal is this 3rd Columbia County location is convenience and accessibility for those out near Appling and Harlem. Okay, let's move to some statewide news here. The Carter family is sharing that former First Lady Rosalind Carter has dementia, a condition which can make it harder to remember, think, or make decisions, or even perform everyday activities. Reporter Abby Soros shares how news of the diagnosis comes as many are calling for more funding for research to fight dementia.
Do have some specific recommendations to try to help overcome. One is to speak out and get people talking about mental illness.
Rosalind Carter, a champion for mental health resources and care, and the founder of the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers, will be in need of care herself.
Whatever spurs a conversation in this day and age is incredibly important. And that is something that Mrs. Carter always wanted for mental health.
Carter helped pass the 1979 Mental Health Act in U.S. Congress, shepherding both sides of the aisle and pushing for Georgia's most recent Mental Health Parity Act. 1 in 10 older Americans has dementia, a condition that affects overall mental health.
I pray for her and President Carter and their family because I know the road that they're on.
Dr. Frank Jones with the Morehouse School of Medicine says watching families adjust to the decline of their loved one's cognitive function is often difficult. His mother and grandmother were both diagnosed with Alzheimer's, a form of dementia.
You really lose sense of the person that they used to be.
More than 3 million Americans are diagnosed with dementia each year. Right now, there is no cure, only medicine that can slow the progression.
Even if it was for one day, I'd love to have one more day of my mother and grandmother in their normal state of mind.
He says right now the medicine is costly and not covered by Medicaid.
Hopefully, her being who she is, that may stimulate the powers that be, the government agencies that are responsible for advancing the research, covering some of the medications. Maybe it takes someone of her stature to really move the needle and to be able to realize that people that are less fortunate than her really have no resources.
In February, the Carter family announced that Rosalind's husband and Georgia's only president, Jimmy Carter, would be entering hospice care. They say the two are at home in Plains, Georgia. In Atlanta, I'm Abby Casoris.
Gone in the blink of an eye. A 62-year-old Georgia man is dead after he was hit by a car Saturday at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta. Asia Wilson spent time with the family of Randall Espy, who says within seconds they lost their entire world.
Taking off from Hartsfield-Jackson was supposed to be the start of a week-long adventure for Randall and Piper Espy Saturday.
We were heading to Sedona, Grand Canyon, hiking.
But within seconds,
his last words to me were, how about, babe, it's time to go.
That experience was stripped away.
Just got out of the side of the car and was about to open his car door, and I looked up and screamed his name, and he looked up, and that was the end of his life.
Atlanta police say the 62-year-old was hit by a vehicle on the lower South Roadway at the airport.
He was not a pedestrian. He was in a safe zone and where he should have been to start to walk to the back of the car.
Piper Espy says she witnessed the driver hit her husband in another car at a rapid speed.
Everything happened so fast. He is my treasure. He loved bigger than life. He treasured the kids and me.
And Espy's son.
My two siblings are all recently married, and we're so excited to have him as a grandfather.
Right now, they're holding on to faith to get them by.
He was taken way too soon. It's really tragic, but, we know that for whatever reason, it was his time, and he's with Jesus. He was a man of God, and we're confident in that, and that brings us comfort and peace.
Piper and Randall Epsey were together for more than 20 years. The suspected driver is charged with homicide by vehicle and failure to yield to a pedestrian. A missing teenager who has autism has been found dead. 16-year-old Connor Mathis didn't show up for dinner at church camp he was attending at Camp Jekyll. Georgia State Patrol says Connor had a high-functioning form of autism. Other campers said he mentioned wanting to go to the beach, so they focused a lot of the search there. The Camden County Sheriff's Office says deputies discovered Connor's body in the surf off Jekyll Island Beach. 9 people are recovering after a deck collapsed over the weekend in Midway, Georgia. What was supposed to be a birthday celebration turned into a traumatic experience for a family when the top deck gave in. The people injured range from 1 to 90 years old. Most of them only have fractures and cuts, but one person is in the ICU. Check out this wild video here, a crash on Highway 84 in Lowndes County going viral on social media. Watch this car come out of nowhere and just ramp up the back of that tow truck coming right here. Look at that, looking like something like Grand Theft Auto. And now the state is raising, or the scene is raising awareness about the state's move over law. Several other officers were already on scene for another incident when that car went airborne and crashed. That was body cam video from a Lowndes County Sheriff's deputy who was on the opposite side of the highway when this happened. Saw the car just drive full speed, here it comes again, up the back of the tow truck, and then fly over the truck, flip in the air, and land. Looks like it might land even on another car, but not really 100% sure.
Control the load that I am towing. I can control where it's at once I arrive on scene, and I can control how it gets off my truck. The only thing I cannot control is the people driving by. That is the worst nightmare.
It's raising awareness of the move over law, which requires drivers to slow down or move over a lane when coming up on an emergency vehicle on the side of the road. No word yet on the condition of the driver who flew that truck or what charges they could be facing. If you violate that move over law, you can get a fine of $500 and up to 3 points on your license. Memorial Day weekend saw more deaths compared to last year. The Georgia Department of Public Safety reported the Memorial Day weekend traffic death count was 15 as of 12 a.m. yesterday morning. Georgia Highway Patrol says at least 6 of those crashes were in the metro Atlanta area. During last year's Memorial Day holiday, troopers say there were 10 deaths. Last year, troopers also cited more than 10,000 citations, issued more than 10,000 citations, made more than 330 DUI arrests, and investigated nearly 400 crashes, resulting in more than 240 injuries. South Carolina Highway Patrol has not released its numbers. Well, if Memorial Day weekend was any indication, summer is going to be a busy travel season. TSA says more than 12 million people were screened beginning Thursday. That passes pre-pandemic numbers of 2019 by about 180,000 passengers. The busiest travel day was Friday with nearly 3 million travelers. South Carolina is launching a new tool for people with sickle cell disease. It's a registry that state health officials say will be secure and totally voluntary. Mary Green has the details from DHEC, which will be overseeing the new project.
Last year, the state legislature passed a bill to establish a sickle cell registry in South Carolina. DHEC is hoping to have it up and running later this year.
We're still in the development phase, but everything's moving quite rapidly, so my hope is sooner.
Sickle cell disease is a blood disorder that causes red blood cells to become misshapen and break down. This often results in excruciating pain and fatigue anywhere that blood flows in the body, and blocked blood flows can lead to strokes and infections. 1 in 400 Black Americans and 1 in 19,000 Latino Americans has sickle cell disease, while 1 in 12 Black Americans and 1 in 100 Latino Americans are carriers.
We know that the national data is there, but that state-specific data is just very limited.
DHEC is encouraging South Carolinians with sickle cell disease to register once it's up and running.
This would give us the opportunity to really look at health outcomes, health equity, access to care, and ensure individuals living with sickle cell have the services and resources they need to live healthy lives.
In addition to being voluntary, DHEC says the online registry will be secure. South Carolinians with sickle cell disease can voluntarily submit information, including their diagnosis, medications, and current treatment plan, and both they and their doctor will be able to access it.
And then the individual, should they need to seek care from a provider outside of their routine hematologist, they can actually share that information with that provider as well, who can validate it and hopefully treat them more timely and appropriately for sickle cell disease.
There's a similar voluntary registry at the national level, overseen by the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America. Reporting in Columbia, I'm Mary Green.
And the South Carolina specific one resulted from legislation Governor McMaster signed into law last year. Alec Murdaugh is set to make an appearance in court today on federal charges. Last week, he was indicted by a federal grand jury for wire fraud and bank fraud. This one surrounds 3 different schemes to scam clients out of money while he was a personal injury attorney. Presidential candidate Ron DeSantis is set to make his first appearance in the Palmetto State since launching his campaign. Florida governor will be making a visit to South Carolina Friday, stopping in Beaufort, Gilbert, and Greenville. He describes his afternoon appearance in Gilbert as a fireside chat, and he'll be accompanied by his wife, Casey. President Biden and House Speaker McCarthy have been trying to sell their debt ceiling plan to skeptical lawmakers in both parties, urging them to support the bipartisan deal that would raise the nation's debt limit while cutting spending before the upcoming deadline. Garrett Hake explains from Washington.
First came the deal, now comes the sale.
We always expected that there would be certain pockets of opposition to this deal, but overall it's a good deal, it's a fair deal, and we're confident that it will get to the president's desk.
And it may not be easy for President Biden to convince some Democrats.
Many of us right now are very angry that we have been held hostage, that we find ourselves in this situation.
And House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to persuade some Republicans.
Not one Republican should vote for this deal. It is a bad deal.
Biden and McCarthy reached a tentative deal Saturday to suspend the nation's debt ceiling and cap non-defense spending for 2 years. Hardline conservatives say it doesn't cut spending enough and want it stopped.
It's time to go back to the drawing table. It's time for us to say no.
Some lawmakers say their dissatisfaction with some parts of the bill is outweighed by the potential consequences.
When we look at the prospect of a first ever default in American history that would truly be a catastrophic event.
House Republican leaders want to put the plan to a floor vote Wednesday. The deal, in its legislative form, needs to pass both chambers of Congress and reach President Biden's desk by next Monday, June 5th, the day the Treasury Department now says the government will run out of money to pay all its bills.
Wasn't Garrett Hake, but the content was the same, giving you the update there on the debt ceiling. Okay, we are getting new details about that apartment building that collapsed in Iowa over the weekend. People who lived there say the building had been falling apart for some time, and bricks from the building were often found on the ground. Protesters have camped out near the site, calling for everyone to be recovered before they demolish the building.
I'm so sorry for all involved, especially the families of the unaccounted for. And anybody that's been displaced.
Rescue crews may search the building again, but it's unclear when due to safety concerns.
We continue to evaluate the structural stability of the building and are focused on the investigative aspect of locating unaccounted for individuals.
The city said on Monday demolition was expected to begin Tuesday morning, but later clarified it would be a multi-step process.
So understand, it's not that we don't want to do this, it's the fact that we have to do it in a safe manner.
Protesters don't want a demolition until all people and pets have been found.
There she is.
Encouraged by the rescue of 52-year-old Lisa Brooks last night, rescue crews had missed her. There'd been repeated complaints about the century-old building. These women, who own a business on the first floor, say they'd filed at least 3 complaints in 7 months. This caved-in ceiling was just part of their troubles.
No heat, water leaking in 2 different spots, cracks in the walls.
Officials say they believe the 2 people who may still be in the building are unlikely to have survived. We spoke with Brandon Colvin Jr., whose father is missing. Where was your dad's apartment?
It was at the top, right where it all fell down, where the clothes were hanging.
Where the clothes are still hanging up?
Yeah.
That was your dad's closet?
Yeah.
The building's owner had work permits and hired an engineering company that deemed the building safe just in January. Police in Hollywood, Florida are working to ID 2 people connected to a Memorial Day mass shooting that left 9 people injured, including several kids. Police say it started out as an argument between two groups of people before erupting in gunfire, sending panicked people running and ducking for cover, as you see here in the surveillance video just released yesterday.
I heard several gunshots, seen a crowd of people running through here, and then we heard like 3 more shots down the street.
Was on the ground bleeding, and they were applying pressure to try to prevent the bleeding.
Video from the scene shows a man wearing a yellow hoodie pull out a gun and start firing before running away. The other man, identified by police, was wearing a gray sweatshirt and black pants, appeared to be holding a weapon as well. The Pentagon released unclassified video of what it's calling an unnecessarily aggressive maneuver of a U.S. Air Force warplane by a Chinese military jet. Here's a look at China's J-16 aircraft from the perspective on board the U.S. reconnaissance aircraft. The two planes are in international airspace over the South China Sea. The Chinese jet cuts in front of the nose of the American aircraft, forcing it to fly through some turbulence there. China claims jurisdiction over much of the sea, but international law considers it open airspace. Wild passenger video is going viral, showing the damage that stormy conditions had on a Carnival cruise ship heading to Charleston. Jasmina Alston spoke with one of the men on board who describes the terrifying ride.
High winds and waves pounding the Carnival sunshine.
Tried to relax. There was no relaxing through this. I heard and I felt everything.
Albemarle resident Daniel Taylor was one of the passengers on board the ship. He tells WBTV things started to get rough around 4 p.m. Friday as the ship headed back towards Charleston, South Carolina from the Bahamas. Around 9 that night, Taylor says, plates and cups stacked in the deli area started to fall. Close to midnight, he says, water was reported leaking into rooms.
They left us high and dry, blind, no communication whatsoever, and that was a bad decision, I feel like, on their part.
Early Saturday morning, Taylor tells us the internet went out as the ship was hitting large swells over and over.
It's just motion after motion. I mean, every 10 to 20 seconds, we were just hitting huge waves or huge swells.
He says he also saw crew members in the hallway wearing life vests. Here's a look at the size of the storm from our WBTV's First Alert Radar Network. This is a loop from Friday night into Saturday morning. You can see the large amount of rain detected. In a statement, Carnival said, quote, Carnival Sunshine's return to Charleston was impacted by the weather and rough seas on Saturday. The weather's prolonged impact on the Charleston area delayed the ship's arrival on Sunday, and as a result, the next voyage embarkation was also delayed. We appreciate the patience and understanding of all of our guests. Carnival Sunshine is now sailing on its next cruise.
Okay, not just Mina Alston, but same content. Okay. If you've ever been on a cruise, you may know that this time of year is tumultuous for cruise lines. Hurricane season starts tomorrow, June 1st, and it goes all the way through the end of November. And just a few days ago, the National Weather Service predicted that this season will be near normal. So that's good, because there have been a couple times in the last few years that we had quite a few hurricanes. I remember we got down into the Greek names. We went through all the English names. We went down to the Greek letters because we had so many hurricanes. Okay. The unofficial start of summer has kicked off, and that means beaches and pools across the country are facing the same problem, a shortage of lifeguards. While the Family Y in our area says they have lifeguards staffed, other areas are forced to close their beaches and pools because there's not enough staff to patrol those waters. Swimming at your own risk could have dangerous consequences. The CDC says about 4,000 people in the U.S. die from drowning each year, which is why lifeguards undergo extensive training in first aid. The American Lifeguard Association estimates close to half the nation's public pools are being impacted.
This is a real problem. It is important for people to keep in mind their own safety around the water.
Lifeguard first aid and CPR courses can run more than $400. Those steep fees, coupled with low hourly wages, are adding to that lifeguard shortage. The pandemic made things worse when pools and beaches were closed, forcing lifeguards to find other jobs. U.S. home prices seem to be in recovery mode. Prices rose slightly in March, 0.4% after seasonal adjustment. It's the second month in a row prices have increased. February's increase snapped a 7-month streak of month-over-month declines. Well, again, unofficial start of summer is here now that we are post-Memorial Day. As you spend more time outside, don't forget to protect your skin from the sun. Sunscreen is a great tool to do that, but health experts say many people may not apply it the correct way. In today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither has more on common sunscreen mistakes and how to fix them.
It's that time of year again when many are out enjoying the warmer weather, but protecting your skin is critical.
Sunscreen is the most common and one of the easiest ways to do it. We just have to remember to use our sunscreens.
Dermatologist Susan Masick with the Ohio State University's Wexner Medical Center says sunscreen mistakes are often made when applying it.
They assume they can just apply it when they're already at their activity or they're already at the pool or the beach, but you actually have to apply it about 10 to 15 minutes beforehand. You also have to remember to reapply every 2 to 3 hours.
If you're swimming or sweating, you'll need to reapply even more often. Masick says mineral sunblock may be easier on sensitive skin, but the best kind of sunscreen is the one you'll actually use.
We want to make sure that we're using the type that is both UVA and UVB protective, so it's broad spectrum protection.
Masick says another mistake is not using enough sunscreen. She says you can never put on too much.
We tend to quantify by 2 ping pong balls worth of a sunscreen and apply it all over. You want to make sure that you apply to all the areas that are exposed, whether it's your face, your ears, hands, feet.
And don't forget, sunscreens expire. Masick says to replace them every year. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
2 ping pong balls of sunscreen. Bet you're not putting that much on. I know I haven't been, but maybe now we gotta start that up, especially with that hot sun down here in Georgia. Masick says sun protection isn't limited to just sunscreen. You can also protect your skin through things like hats, rash guards, long sleeves, and other clothing. Let's get into that time. Protect the skin. We've done too many stories talking about skin cancer the last couple weeks or months. Not a fun thing to have, not a fun thing to talk about for us. So best way to get rid of it, just protect yourself. Okay, it's not just your children who need swim lessons in the summer. Man's best friend may need them as well. Many people think dogs are natural-born swimmers, but experts say that is actually not true. Here's what you need to know to make sure your pet is safe around the pool.
Good boy, good swimming.
Some dogs can't get enough of the water, while others are scared to even put a paw in.
What I want people to understand about water safety, it's just as important for our animals as it is for our humans.
Because contrary to popular belief, not all dogs are good natural swimmers.
Dogs that have really dense muscles and are heavy, they're going to sink just because they don't have body fat, they don't have webbed feet. So we will naturally put a vest on them.
But all dogs can learn some tips and tricks to help them along.
You can give your dog some treats.
During the summer months, AZ Dog Sports trainer Denise Franzak Johnson teaches private dog swim classes. The first step, luring them into the water.
Come here. Step down.
Like all dogs, Levi here doesn't have depth perception like humans do, so he can't tell how deep the water is.
I do have them leashed up so that they can be guided into the pool, especially for dogs who are fearful.
The next step, teaching them to go to the stairs.
To the stairs. Good boy. It's putting markers by the stairs, maybe a little potted plant.
And learning to use their back feet.
I hold their back end and I just keep them moving and moving around the pool until they eventually kind of calm down.
Doggy swim lessons. Yeah, not every dog likes the water. I know that sometimes maybe those labs will hop in, the retrievers, they'll be in there, no problem. But some of these other dogs, not big water fans, so can't hurt to get your dog a couple swim lessons there. It's one of those things you'd rather have and not need than need and not have. So something to think about this summer. Okay, leaders from nearly 200 nations are on a mission to bring an end to global pollution. Let me make sure I do. Okay. Talks are underway in Paris to come up with a treaty to tackle this issue. CBS's Ian Lee reports from London.
Take a stroll down a beach and you'll likely see plastic pollution. We produce around 500 million tons of it worldwide every year.
Truth is that we cannot recycle our way out of this mess.
World leaders, activists, and industry experts are meeting in Paris this week.
What do we want?
They're hoping to forge a treaty to limit plastic production, especially those made with hazardous chemicals.
99% of our plastics come from fossil fuels, but it also means that the whole life cycle of plastic starts producing greenhouse gas emissions that continue to drive climate change.
The United Nations Environment Chief says the world is abusing plastic because it's so cheap. The UN has released a blueprint for reducing plastic waste by 80% by 2040, focusing on reusing, recycling, and finding alternative materials.
Current commitments will only reduce plastic pollution by 8% by 2040, so the tap is still wide open.
Norway and Rwanda are leading a coalition driving this global change. But plastic-producing nations and gas exporters like the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and China want the treaty to scale up recycling. The goal, though, is the same: wiping out the plastic that plagues the planet. Ian Lee, CBS News.
Plastic also contributes to global warming, accounting for almost 3.5% of worldwide emissions back in 2019. A national investigation into claims medical facilities are playing God with vulnerable patients' lives. It involves DNRs, or do not resuscitate orders, placed on people with mental disabilities unknown to their families. Andy Parati explains why some families believe their loved ones died too soon and how it could happen to anyone.
Leona Milne's family remembers her as their biggest baseball fan.
She was a tremendous Braves fan.
Today, her younger brother is left to visit her here.
How did you find out that she passed away?
I walked in and found her dead.
It all happened here at Roselane Health and Rehabilitation Center in Marietta, Georgia in April 2018. The 73-year-old was admitted to help her walk again following foot surgery, a temporary stay. But within days, nurses noticed something wrong.
They called and said she was having a little trouble breathing.
Chuck says he begged the nurses to call an ambulance, the hospital less than a mile away, but they wouldn't do it. That's because Leona had signed this, a DNR, or do not resuscitate order, which prohibits medical staff from performing life-saving measures like CPR if a person's heart stops.
And I said, you don't understand, she's not capable of signing a DNR.
Why wasn't she capable? Leona grew up with a mental disability her entire life, the cognitive ability of a 9 or 10-year-old as an adult. Mike Prieto represents Leona's family in a pending wrongful death lawsuit against Dr. Sarah Sampadham, the facility's former medical director and the physician ultimately responsible for Leona's care.
When we first looked at the case, we really just looked at it on whether or not Ms. Milne had mental capacity to execute a DNR. It wasn't until later that the rest of the story came out.
This is a DNR form for Ms. Milne.
The rest of the story revealed itself during this 2021 deposition of a social worker who worked at Roselane. Like many states, Georgia law requires 2 doctors and an ethics committee to sign off on any DNR ordered for someone mentally disabled or incapacitated. The social worker said none of that happened at Roselane. In Leona's case, her DNR was photocopied with 2 doctor signatures already on it before the form was ever given to Leona. One of the doctors resigned before Leona was ever admitted.
Were they original signatures or were they photocopied versions of signatures?
We had copies of those.
It wasn't the only time it allegedly happened. These are 194 DNR orders, part of the lawsuit, that were allegedly photocopied with doctor signatures on them before patients were ever evaluated. Through her attorney, Dr. Sampadham declined to be interviewed, but denies any wrongdoing in court filings. According to this August deposition, she claims she had no idea the practice was happening in her 4 years as the facility's medical director, saying it had never come up. According to records from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, at least 4,800 long-term care facilities across the country since 2019 have violated patient advance directives, which includes DNRs.
This has to stop. They can't be doing this to other people. You're dealing with people's lives and families.
The lawsuit filed against the doctor who cared for Leona is still pending in Georgia. Her family settled a lawsuit against the facility for an undisclosed amount of money. Since 2017, Georgia's Department of Community Health has cited the facility 34 times, including not providing proper treatment plans, supervision, and multiple medication-related errors. All right, move along here. Graduating high school seniors may take on as much as $37,000 in student loan debt over the next 4 years. That's according to a new report from NerdWallet. Consumer investigator Rachel DePompa talks to an expert about ways to help your teen really understand what it means to borrow money.
College tuition prices are going back up, and this estimate from NerdWallet on how much a student will owe, it's just an average from the most affordable public universities and colleges. Not everyone will need to borrow $37,000, and many will borrow way more than that. Elizabeth Renter with NerdWallet says one thing to keep in mind: if you need to borrow more than $31,000, you will hit a cap on the amount that's allowed in federal student loans. So if you exceed that, you may need to look at other resources for your funds, which might lead you to private student loans or Parent Plus loans, which are federal loans that are given to the parent rather than the student.
A word of caution when it comes to that. A couple years ago, we fielded a survey and found that 26% of parents that took on Parent Plus loans said it impacted their retirement plans. So we would strongly urge parents to think carefully before they take on debt for their students' education.
After all, your child is going to college to ultimately increase their earning power and graduate with a job they love, and they'll have a lot of time to pay off student loan debt. Renter also says make sure your student fills out the FAFSA every year.
We recommend you don't wait until the last minute. Some of the money that the FAFSA allocates is first come, first serve. There are limited pools of money when it comes to grant aid, especially institutional and state grant aid. So the sooner you can get that filled out and turned in, the better.
Also, Renter says high school seniors get a lot of help applying for scholarships. There are usually big award ceremonies just before graduation where everybody celebrates. But she says there are also scholarships available for sophomores and juniors and seniors in college. Your college student needs to keep an eye out for scholarships throughout their college career. With this Watch in Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.
Do you know what's in the food you eat? Well, if you're watching what you eat, the nutritional information on the side of the box or wrapper can help, but trying to understand it can be difficult for most of us. Fortunately, an app can help you watch what you eat by actually watching what you eat. Our consumer tech reporter, Jamie Tucker, has found a smartphone app that can recognize your food with just a picture.
If it's packaged food, you can get some nutritional information, but what about this? When you fix something at home, there are no barcodes or nutritional information. Well, this app called FoodVisor for iPhone and Android devices can tell you.
You take a photo with your camera, and FoodVisor uses artificial intelligence to recognize the food and tell you what it is. There's no barcode for hard-boiled eggs, for example. FoodVisor doesn't need one. It shows the calories, vitamins, minerals, and records it for your daily intake. Now, for packaged foods like this protein bar, the breakfast cereal, and almond milk, you will need to scan the barcode. Save it to record your meals. That's all good, but what do you do with that information? FoodVisor asks what you want to accomplish with your diet when you first set up, lose weight, gain muscle, and how fast you want to see results, and how committed you're going to be. It then creates a diet and exercise plan to reach your goals. A premium version of FoodVisor comes with a real live nutritionist to answer questions and provide encouragement over chat messages, over 200 recipes that match your diet, and hundreds of articles that can help. Now, the free version is limited, but if you want all of the features, it's $59 for 3 months. There's a 2-week free trial, though. Just don't forget to cancel if you don't want to pay the full price after that trial is over. I'm Jamie Tucker, and FoodVisor is the app of the day.
Foodvisor is the top, or one of the top rated health and diet apps in both app stores with more than 56,000 reviews. You may remember Raven Allen, the Special Olympic athlete who will be traveling to Germany to represent Team USA in the Special Olympic Games for kayaking. Well, the games are just a few weeks away, and she's teaming up with local scouts to lead them on a kayaking trip. Our Maria Sellers caught up with them ahead of Raven's big competition.
Raven Allen is getting ready to represent the USA on the Special Olympic kayaking team.
It's a big accomplishment to know that I can be one of the chosen ones to do that, so it's an honor.
An honor she says she did not see coming. She was surprised when her coach told her she'd be competing in Berlin, Germany.
And I was like, no way, you're pulling my leg, right? And he was like, no, I'm serious.
But before she can take the trip across the pond, she's getting some practice in by leading local scouts on a kayaking trip.
So I'm going to teach them about how to stay balanced in the kayak and how to properly hold a kayak and how to properly control the kayak with the paddles.
And the scouts are thrilled to be learning from a world-class athlete.
It's pretty exciting to have someone that teach you some pretty awesome skills.
Raven's coach says activities like this are more than just a chance for her to practice, or just an exciting adventure for the scouts.
Having the acceptance for the opportunity to get to know each other, develop, learn, interact, is just key in developing good, solid citizens.
And Raven says she hopes to encourage people to give one of her favorite sports a try.
Just go for it. You got to face your fear somehow. So sometimes you just got to push yourself out there. Sometimes that little push is all you need.
In Columbia County, Maria Sellers on your side.
Who knows, maybe that little push leads you to be the next Olympian, heading off to Germany to compete. So good luck to Raven. Very cool for her to be able to do that before she goes. You can always find out about these stories and much more up on the website, WRDW.com. Also, be sure to check out our streaming app, WRDW, on your favorite streaming device, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Got about 8 minutes or so till Morning Mix starts, and then I'll be back here a little bit later on in the morning talking with Meredith about her latest I-Team investigation about a boy who left school and ended up in an abandoned house on Fort Gordon. So we'll have that coming up a little bit later on this morning. See you back here then.